She had never been to Atlanta Medical after dark. The parking lot was nearly empty. The fluorescent entrance sign buzzed in the thick Georgia heat, and Serena Vale sat in her car for a full 2 minutes before she got out. She had a presentation at 8 a.m. She had leftover pasta waiting on her stove. She had exactly 0 reasons to be here. The call had come at 11:47 p.m. A nurse, calm, professional. A patient had been admitted, critical condition, and had listed Serena's name as her emergency contact. Her name, her number, her. "There must be a mistake," Serena had said. "Is this Serena Vale? Date of birth, March 4th, 1996? It was. She went in anyway because she was that kind of person, the kind who shows up even when it makes no sense, even when every reasonable instinct says turn around and go home. She followed a young nurse down a corridor that smelled like antiseptic and old coffee and stopped at room 14B. The woman in the bed was thin, too thin. Tubes in both arms, a monitor drawing green lines across a black screen. She looked like someone who had been disappearing slowly for a very long time. And then she opened her eyes. And she looked at Serena the way you look at someone you have been waiting for your entire life. Serena did not know this woman. She was certain of that. She had a good memory for faces, always had, and this one was a stranger. Pale, hollow-cheeked, hair the color of old ash spread across the pillow. But the woman knew her. Serena could see it in the way her eyes moved, not wandering the way sick eyes do, but locked, focused, like someone who had rehearsed this moment for years and was finally here. "I think there has been some kind of mix-up," Serena said carefully, addressing both the woman and the nurse standing behind her. "I don't know this person." The nurse gave a small apologetic shrug. "She was very specific about the name and number. We assumed." "It's all right." The woman's voice was barely above a whisper, dry, like paper, but steady. Serena turned back to her. "You don't know me yet," the woman said, "but I know you. I have always known you." The room felt smaller suddenly. The monitor beeped. The fluorescent light above the bed hummed. Serena became aware that her heart was beating faster than it should have been for a conversation she had no stake in. "Who are you?" she asked. The woman closed her eyes for a moment. "Open them." "My name is Celeste, and I need you to listen to me very carefully because I do not have much time." What Celeste said next, Serena would replay in her mind for the rest of her life, not because it was long, not because it was complicated, because it was 4 words spoken by a dying woman in a hospital bed, and those 4 words cracked the entire foundation of everything Serena Vale had ever believed about herself. "You are the heir." Serena did not move. What Celeste said next, Serena would replay in her mind for the rest of her life, not because it was long, not because it was complicated, because it was 4 words. 4 words spoken by a dying woman in a hospital bed, and those 4 words cracked the entire foundation of everything Serena Vale had ever believed about herself. "You are the heir." Serena did not move. She should have gone home, she knew that. She should have gone home, eaten her pasta, and forgotten this entire night. Instead, she went to Wren Street. And what she found there, inside a house she had never been told existed, full of photographs she had never been meant to see, was the first piece of a truth that someone had spent 28 years burying. A truth that had her face in it. A truth that had her name in it. A truth that, once she held it, she could never put back down. Before that night, Serena Vale's life was exactly what she had designed it to be. Small, careful, controlled. She lived in a 1-bedroom apartment on the east side of Atlanta. Clean, but not decorated. Practical, but not warm. The kind of place that tells you its occupant is organized and busy and has never quite gotten around to making it feel like home. A bookshelf arranged by color, a single succulent on the windowsill, dishes always done before bed. She had a routine, and she kept it with the quiet discipline of someone who understood from a very young age that routines are what keep the world from falling apart. 6 a.m. alarm, coffee, black, bus to work because she didn't like driving, lunch at her desk, home by 7, call her mother on Sundays. Always Sundays, always exactly 40 minutes. She had worked at Caldwell Enterprises for 11 months, junior accountant, row 4, desk 7. She had gotten the job the old-fashioned way, applied online, interviewed twice, sold herself on the strength of her record and nothing else. No connections, no inside track. No one had pulled a string for her. That mattered to Serena. It mattered enormously. She had grown up watching her mother, Diane Vale, stretch every dollar like it was made of rubber. Seamstress work, alterations, hemlines, the occasional bridal gown for someone else's wedding. They had been fine. Not comfortable, not abundant, fine. And fine was something Serena had decided very early was not going to be the ceiling. She had put herself through school on a combination of scholarships and weekend work. She had graduated with honors. She had moved to Atlanta 3 years ago because Atlanta was where the work was, and work was what she understood. She did not think about her father. She had been told he was dead. She had believed it because there was no reason not to. She was not the kind of person things happened to. Or so she thought. Caldwell Enterprises occupied 14 floors of a glass tower in Midtown. Real estate, construction, property management. The kind of company whose name was on half the buildings in the city without anyone really noticing, because companies like that move quietly. Power always does. Serena had been there 11 months, and she still felt some mornings like she had wandered into a building that wasn't quite meant for her. The lobby alone, marble floors, a waterfall feature that served no purpose except to remind you that someone could afford it, had made her catch her breath on her first day. She had steadied herself quickly. She was good at that. She knew the family by reputation and by the photographs on the executive floor, which she visited exactly once a month to deliver quarterly reports. Raymond Caldwell, the patriarch, smiling from a portrait taken sometime in the 1990s. Raymond was dead now. Heart attack 3 years ago. His widow, Gloria, technically held the chair. His son, Marcus, ran the operation. 41. Handsome in a cold, symmetrical way. The kind of man who walked through rooms without making eye contact with anyone below a certain salary grade. He had passed Serena in the corridor exactly twice in 11 months and had not registered her existence on either occasion. She told herself this was fine. She was not here to be noticed. She was here to do the work and build the record and move up one careful step at a time. That was the life she had built. That was the life she had been living. And then a stranger pressed a key in her hand and said 4 words, and the careful, ordinary life Serena Vale had constructed, brick by deliberate brick, began very quietly to come apart. She just didn't know it yet. She was still telling herself it was a mistake. She was still telling herself it as she drove to Wren Street. She was still telling herself it as she pulled up in front of a house she had never seen. A narrow Victorian, dark windows, weeds in the front walk, and sat in her car with the engine running and the old key in her hand. She turned the engine off. She got out of the car. To understand what Serena was walking into, you have to understand what the Caldwell family was. Not what they said they were, what they actually were. Because those two things, as Serena would come to learn, were very different. Raymond Caldwell had started with nothing. That was the story they told, anyway. The version printed in the Atlanta Business Chronicle when he died. The version repeated at the memorial. The version framed and mounted in the lobby next to his portrait. A man who came from a single room in Macon with $40 and a work ethic and built an empire from the ground up. Some of it was true. Raymond had worked hard. He had also, at the right moments, worked ruthlessly, which the Chronicle did not mention. He had built Caldwell Enterprises through a combination of real talent and a willingness to do what other people wouldn't. Acquisitions that should have been contested, properties bought under pressure, partnerships that ended in ways that still made certain people in Atlanta go quiet if you mentioned the name. But he had also built things, real things, affordable housing before it was profitable, community developments in neighborhoods that had been written off. The man was not simple, and his legacy was not simple. What he had left behind, however, was a family that was. Gloria Caldwell had married Raymond when she was 26 and he was 34, and she had spent the next 30 years learning how power worked in that marriage and how to keep it. She was elegant in the way that very controlled people are elegant, nothing out of place, nothing unguarded, nothing given away without purpose. When Raymond died, Gloria moved into the chair with a smoothness that left the board no time to object. She had been ready. She had always been ready. The question of whether she had been waiting was one that people whispered but never asked aloud. She was 63. She had 2 children. Marcus was the eldest. 41, Stanford MBA, ran the day-to-day operation with his father's discipline and none of his warmth. The staff respected him in the particular way people respect someone they are also a little afraid of. He had his mother's eyes, dark, still, measuring everything. Priya was the youngest, 36. She had a law degree she rarely used and a talent for making people underestimate her that she used constantly. She sat on the Caldwell board and disagreed with Marcus on nearly every vote and had, as far as anyone could tell, been losing those disagreements her entire adult life. She did not look like someone who had accepted that. This was the family's building Serena entered every morning, whose quarterly numbers she reviewed, whose logo appeared on her paychecks. She had no idea. She had sat in the same glass tower with Gloria Caldwell for 11 months and had no idea that the woman in the executive chair on the 14th floor had made a decision 28 years ago that had shaped every single thing about Serena's life. Where she grew up, what name she carried, who she believed herself to be. She had passed Marcus Caldwell twice in a corridor and had no idea she shared his blood. She had attended a company all-hands where Priya Caldwell had given a short speech about innovation and had thought briefly that she seemed interesting before going back to her spreadsheets. The universe had a dark sense of humor. But here is the thing about the Caldwell family, the thing that matters for everything that came after. Secrets in families like that do not stay buried because they are well hidden. They stay buried because everyone with a reason to dig has been made to understand, very clearly, very firmly, that the cost of digging is higher than they are willing to pay. Someone had decided 28 years ago that Serena Vale was a secret worth keeping, and someone had also decided, apparently, that she was a secret worth ending. Because Celeste had found her, had kept her name and number for God knows how long, had waited until she was running out of time. And now, Serena was standing in front of a dark house on Wren Street with a key in her hand, and the only question left was whether she was brave enough, or foolish enough, to open the door.
The key fit. Serena stood on the porch of the house on Wren Street, slid the key into the lock, and felt the mechanism turn with a heaviness that told her the door had not been opened recently. The wood had swollen slightly in the frame. She had to push with her shoulder. Inside, the air was still and warm and smells like old paper and something floral, rosewater maybe, or the ghost of it. She found the light switch, one bulb in the ceiling, bare and dim, but enough. The house was small, a front room that served as living space and dining space both, a narrow kitchen at the back, a staircase leading to what she assumed was a single bedroom above. Everything in it was old but maintained, the kind of old that comes from care, not neglect. Furniture that had been reupholstered once or twice, curtains that had been washed so many times they had faded to a pleasant softness. Someone had lived here carefully, and then stopped. The layer of dust on the mantelpiece told her the house had been empty for months, maybe longer. She moved to the mantelpiece first. There was a row of framed photographs. She picked up the first one and held it under the overhead light. A woman she did not recognize, young, maybe mid-20s, laughing at something off camera. Dark hair, a bright smile, beautiful in a way that was completely unself-conscious. She set it down and picked up the next. The same woman, slightly older now, and in her arms. Serena stopped. In her arms was a baby, wrapped in a yellow blanket, and the baby had a birthmark on the left side of its jaw, a small irregular mark the shape of a crescent moon that Serena had looked at in the mirror every morning of her entire life. She sat down. She did not decide to sit down. Her legs made the decision for her. She sat in a dusty armchair that exhaled a small cloud of trapped time, and she held the photograph, and she looked at the baby with her birthmark, and she breathed very carefully in and out. Then she stood up and started looking. She went through every drawer, every shelf, every box she could find. She was not sure what she was looking for until she found it. A manila folder at the back of a bedroom closet, behind a row of hanging clothes that smelled faintly of rosewater. Inside the folder was a document. She unfolded it carefully. Legal paper, typed, formal. At the top, Caldwell Heir Transfer Agreement. Below that, a date, 28 years ago. Below that, 2 names. The first name was Celeste Caldwell. The second name was Diane Vale. And below the names, a clause that used careful legal language to describe something that was not careful or legal in any sense that Serena could accept. The arrangement by which the biological daughter of Celeste Caldwell, hereafter referred to as the child, would be transferred into the permanent custody of Diane Vale, with all identifying documentation reflecting the Vale name, in exchange for a sum of money paid annually, contingent upon the child having no contact with or knowledge of the Caldwell family. The child. Serena read that word 3 times. She looked at the birthmark in the photograph. She touched the matching mark on her own jaw. She folded the document very precisely and placed it back inside the folder. Then she sat in the dark and dust of a dead woman's house and understood for the first time that her entire life had been a transaction. She took the folder. She took the photographs. She took everything she could carry. Because Celeste said go before they do, and now Serena understood what that meant. There were other people who knew this house existed, other people who knew what was inside it, and she had a feeling, cold and certain, the kind of feeling that does not lie, that they would be coming. She drove home in the dark with a dead woman's secrets on the passenger seat and the key still in her hand. She was not the same person who had driven to Atlanta Medical 3 hours earlier. She wasn't sure she knew who she was at all.
She did not sleep. She sat in her apartment with the folder on the coffee table and the photographs spread out in front of her and the old key on top of them, and she did not sleep and she did not move for a very long time. The succulent on the windowsill caught the first gray light of morning. The coffee she had made at 2 a.m. went cold. The folder sat where she had placed it and did not move and did not change and did not stop being what it was, no matter how long she looked at it. She picked up the photograph again, the baby in the yellow blanket, the crescent birthmark on the left side of the jaw. She touched her own jaw. She put the photograph down. She picked up the document again, Caldwell Heir Transfer Agreement, the date, the 2 names, Celeste Caldwell, Diane Vale. The language about the child, the language about the money, the language about the name, the Vale name, not the Caldwell name, never the Caldwell name. That was the condition. That was what the money bought. She put the document down. She did this 4 more times before sunrise. At 6 a.m. her alarm went off.
She silenced it without looking at it. She sat in the gray morning light and understood for the first time in her adult life that she was not going to work today. She called in at 7. The receptionist sounded surprised. Serena Vale did not call in sick. In 11 months, she had not missed a single day, had not been late once, had not left early for any reason, including the afternoon last February when she had a fever of 101 and had sat at her desk until 5 o'clock anyway because the quarterly reports needed filing. "Everything all right?" the receptionist asked. "Fine," Serena said. Something came up. She hung up and looked at the folder. "Fine," she had said, the word her mother used, the word that meant not comfortable, not abundant, just fine. The word Serena had spent her entire life trying to make obsolete. She picked up the document again. By 9 a.m. she had a system. This was how Serena Vale handled crisis, not by falling apart, but by organizing. She cleared the coffee table completely. She laid everything out in order. The photographs on the left, the document in the center, the key on the right. She numbered the photographs in pencil on the back, 1 through 11, chronological as best she could tell by Celeste's age in them. Photograph 1, Celeste young, maybe 20, laughing. Photograph 2, Celeste slightly older, standing outside a house Serena did not recognize. Photographs 3 through 7, Celeste with a man Serena could not fully identify. His face was cut from 3 of the photographs. Deliberately, carefully, someone had removed him. Photograph 8, Celeste alone, visibly pregnant, expression unreadable. Photograph 9, Celeste holding a newborn, yellow blanket, crescent birthmark. Photograph 10, the baby alone in a crib, a mobile above it, a window behind it showing a garden Serena did not recognize. Photograph 11, the baby again, slightly older, being held by a woman whose face was not Celeste, a woman with a seamstress measuring tape around her neck. Serena held photograph 11 for a long time. The woman holding her was Diane Vale. She called her mother at 10:37 a.m. Diane answered on the second ring the way she always did, and said Serena's name in the warm, distracted way she said it when she was working, half present, half still thinking about whatever scene she was in the middle of. "I need to come over," Serena said. A pause, just a half second, just long enough. "Of course," Diane said. "Is everything?" "I'll be there in an hour," Serena said. She hung up. She gathered the photographs and the document back into the folder. She picked up the key. She held it for a moment. This small, old thing that had opened a door she could never close again, and then she put it in her coat pocket and picked up her bag and left. She was not the same person who had come home last night. She was not sure she knew yet who she was instead. But she knew one thing with absolute clarity as she walked to her car in the morning light with a dead woman's secrets under her arm. She was done being fine. Chapter 6, Her Mother's First Lie. Diane Vale's house was 40 minutes from Serena's apartment. A small brick house in a quiet neighborhood that smelled like cut grass and old trees. Serena had grown up in this house. She knew every creak of the porch steps, every particular way the front door sticks in summer humidity, every detail of the kitchen where Diane had spent 30 years bent over fabric under a lamp. She knew this house the way you know the place where you learned what the world was. She was about to learn it was built on something she had never been told. Diane met her at the door. She was in her work clothes, soft trousers, a loose blouse with a pincushion clipped to her pocket, reading glasses pushed up on her forehead. She looked at Serena's face, and whatever she had been about to say died before it reached her mouth. She stepped back from the door. Serena walked in. She did not sit down. She stood in the center of the kitchen she had done homework in, eaten 1,000 meals in, had 100 Sunday phone calls from, and she placed the folder on the table between them and opened it to the document and said nothing. Diane looked at it. She did not pick it up. She did not lean in to read it. She did not ask what it was. She already knew what it was. That was how Serena knew. "Sit down," Diane said. Her voice was very quiet. "I don't want to sit down." "Serena, how long have you known?" Serena said. "How long have you known who I am?" The question sat in the kitchen between them like something that had been waiting a very long time to be asked. Diane sat down. She folded her hands on the table. She looked at them. She looked up. "Since the beginning," she said. What followed was 40 minutes that bore no resemblance to their Sunday calls. Diane told her everything, not in order. Grief and guilt never come in order, but eventually all of it. A woman named Celeste who had come to her through a lawyer, a baby, an arrangement, money that would come annually as long as certain conditions were kept, the Vale name, the distance from Atlanta, the silence. She needed someone she could trust, Diane said. Someone who would love you. She chose me. She paid you, Serena said. She also chose me. Both things are true. You lied to me for 28 years. I raised you for 28 years. Diane's voice broke on the last word. I was at every school play, every graduation. Every time you called on Sunday, I was there. That was not a lie. That was your mother. You are not my mother, Serena said. The words came out before she decided to say them. They landed in the kitchen the way words like that land, without any possibility of taking them back. Diane did not cry. She looked like someone absorbing a blow she had always known was coming. Her hands stayed folded on the table. Her breathing stayed even. Only her eyes changed, something behind them going very still and very far away. I know, she said softly. I know that. Serena took the document and the photographs and the key and left. She sat in her car in Diane's driveway for 11 minutes without starting the engine. Diane did not come to the door. Serena had not expected her to. She thought about the woman in the hospital bed who had pressed a key into her hand and said 4 words. She thought about the document with 2 names on it. She thought about photograph 11, herself as a baby, the crescent birthmark visible, being held by a woman with a measuring tape around her neck. She thought about 28 years of Sunday calls. Always Sundays, always exactly 40 minutes. She started the engine. She had no idea where she was going. She drove anyway because sitting still was no longer something she knew how to do. She did not cry. That surprised her. She had thought she would cry. Instead, she felt something colder and quieter and more permanent than tears. The particular feeling of understanding that the map you've been using your entire life is wrong. Not slightly wrong, fundamentally wrong. And now you are standing in a territory you do not recognize with no map at all. She drove back to Atlanta. She went back to work the next morning. She did not call her mother on Sunday. Chapter 7. Marcus notices her. She almost convinced herself it was over. That is the thing about Serena Vale. She was very good at compartmentalizing. It was a skill she had developed the way she developed most skills, through practice and necessity, and the understanding that falling apart was a luxury she could not afford. She had a folder of documents she could not explain. She had a mother she could not call. She had a name that apparently was not her name, and a family she had apparently been sitting 40 feet below for 11 months. She went back to work. She reviewed her spreadsheets. She delivered her reports. She sat at row 4, desk 7, and she did not think about any of it between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m., and she was almost convincing herself that this was sustainable. And then Marcus Caldwell stopped at her desk. She had not heard him coming. That was the first thing. The man moved through spaces without making sound, which she had not noticed before because he had never moved through her space before. He was simply there, suddenly, at the edge of her desk, looking at her screen with an expression of what appeared to be genuine interest. The Harmon property analysis, he said, not a question. Serena looked up. Her expression did not change. 28 years of practice. Yes, she said. Your variance calculation in column F. Walk me through it. She walked him through it. She was thorough and precise, and she did not stumble once, which she was proud of, because Marcus Caldwell was standing at her desk looking at her work, and she had just spent 3 days finding out that he might be her half-brother. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. That is a better approach than what the senior team used last quarter, he said. He said it the way he said everything, flatly, as a statement of fact, with no particular warmth attached to it. Then he walked away. Serena turned back to her screen. Her hands were completely steady. She was very good at this. It happened again 4 days later. A meeting she had not been invited to. A strategy session on the 14th floor. The kind of meeting that junior accountants did not attend. Her name appeared on the calendar invitation at 8:47 a.m. for a 10 o'clock meeting. No explanation, no context. Just her name on a list that had no business containing her name. She went. She sat at the far end of the table and said nothing unless directly addressed. And when she was directly addressed, she said exactly what she thought and not one word more. Marcus addressed her twice. Both times he used her first name. Both times he listened to what she said with the particular focused attention of someone who was actually processing the information rather than waiting for their turn to speak. After the meeting, Priya Caldwell caught her eye across the table. Just for a moment. An expression that Serena could not quite read. Not hostile, not warm. Something more like assessment. Like someone revising an estimate. Serena looked away first. This was the question that kept her awake that week. Did he know? Had Marcus Caldwell pulled her into that meeting because he had looked at her work and recognized genuine ability the way he had said? Or had he pulled her in because he knew who she was and was watching her, testing her, managing her? Was this kindness or strategy? The problem was that with Marcus, those two things had the same face, the same flat, precise voice, the same focused attention that could be respect or surveillance or both simultaneously. She had no way of knowing. She went back to her spreadsheets. She attended the meeting she was invited to. She said what she thought when she was asked and kept everything else locked down behind the professional composure she had spent 28 years building. She did not trust Marcus Caldwell. She did not trust anyone in that building. But she showed up every morning because the one thing she understood with absolute clarity was this. Whoever she was and whoever her family turned out to be, she had earned her seat at row 4, desk 7 on the strength of her own record. And no one, not Marcus, not Gloria, not the ghost of Raymond Caldwell smelling from his lobby portrait, was going to take that from her. Chapter 8. Gloria's Warning. The gala was on a Thursday. Caldwell Enterprises held one every year. A fundraiser for the Affordable Housing Foundation Raymond had started in the 1980s, back when he was still building things rather than just protecting them. Black tie, the ballroom of a hotel in Buckhead. The kind of event where the food costs more per plate than Serena's monthly grocery budget, and everyone pretended not to notice. She had not been invited in the previous 11 months. She received the invitation for this one on a Monday, 3 days after the second meeting on the 14th floor. Her name on a card, table 9. She went because not going would have been a statement she was not ready to make. She wore the black dress she kept for occasions that required a black dress. She sat at table 9 with people from the legal and finance departments and made conversation and ate food she could not taste, and watched the Caldwell family work the room. Gloria moved through it like water, frictionless, pauselessful, touching every surface briefly and leaving no mark. She spoke to everyone and committed to no one. She laughed at exactly the right moments. She was, Serena thought from across the room, the most controlled human being she had ever watched operate in a social setting. Marcus stood near the bar and let people come to him, which they did, steadily, because that is what happens when you sign people's paychecks and they're in a room with an open bar and ambient pressure to network. Priya was at a table near the window, talking to someone Serena did not recognize. Her expression doing that thing it did in board meetings, attentive and slightly bored and completely unreadable. Serena matched all of them and sipped water and told herself she was fine. Gloria found her at 10:45. Not by accident. Gloria Caldwell did not do anything by accident. Serena had stepped away from the table to get air, not outside, just to the quieter edge of the ballroom, near the corridor that led to the co-check. She was standing with her water glass looking at nothing in particular when she became aware that someone had positioned themselves beside her with the deliberate precision of someone who'd been waiting for exactly this moment. She turned. Gloria was closer than she expected. Close enough that the conversation could not be overheard. Far enough that nothing about it looked confrontational to anyone watching from across the room. She was wearing a dark gown and a single strand of pearls, and her expression was the expression Serena had seen in the boardroom portrait. Composed, unreadable, giving away precisely nothing. Serena, she said. I have been meaning to introduce myself properly. Serena, she said. Her voice was level. She was proud of that. Gloria, she smiled. It was a perfect smile. It reached her eyes and meant nothing. I also understand, Gloria said, her voice dropping slightly, not in volume but in temperature, that you had a difficult week recently, a hospital visit, a family matter. Serena did not move, did not blink, did not let anything she was feeling reach her face.
She went through every drawer, every shelf, every corner of the apartment with the methodical thoroughness of someone who has just realized they had been naive. The transfer agreement was gone.
The photographs were still there. She had taken to keeping them in her bag, which was on her person when she left that morning, which meant whoever had been in her apartment had not gotten to them. But the original document, the one with both names, the one with the money clause, the one that connected Celeste Caldwell to Diane Vale to Serena, was gone. Someone had come into her home. Someone had known what to look for. Someone had been watching her since the hospital. She sat on her kitchen floor with her back against the cabinets, and she let herself feel it for exactly 5 minutes. The violation, the fear, the particular fury of someone who has built a small, careful life and has had it entered without permission. 5 minutes. Then she stood up and made coffee and started thinking. They had been watching her since the hospital. That meant the hospital visit had triggered something, which meant that Celeste being listed as her emergency contact, Celeste reaching out, Celeste finding her, had been known or discovered by the family, which meant either the hospital had been monitored or someone close to Celeste had been reporting. The attorney had reached her on her cell phone, which Celeste had given him. Who else had Celeste given it to? She thought about Gloria's voice at the gala, the temperature drop, the particular precision of someone who already knew exactly what information was in play and needed to know whether Serena intended to use it. She thought about Marcus inviting her to meetings, praising her work, using her first name. She thought about Priya at the board meeting, watching her across the table with that expression she could not read. 3 Caldwells, 3 completely different approaches to the same woman. The same blood they shared, and none of them had admitted it. She called Bernard Osei that evening. "Someone searched my apartment," she said. "The original transfer agreement is gone." A pause. "Are you safe?" he asked. It was the first time anyone had asked her that. She had not thought to ask it herself. "I think so," she said. "Yes." "The copy of the will is secure," he said. "I have multiple copies in multiple locations. That cannot be taken from you." "What do I do now?" she asked. It was not a question she asked often. She was not accustomed to not knowing what to do. Bernard was quiet for a moment. "You wait," he said, "and you pay attention, and you trust no one in that building." She looked at the succulent on the windowsill, 3 inches to the left of where she kept it. She moved it back. "I don't trust anyone in that building," she said. "Good," said Bernard Osei. "Keep it that way." Chapter 11. Marcus tells the truth, his version. He found her on a Tuesday. Not at the office. She had half expected him to summon her upstairs, to call her into the glass office and close the door the way powerful men close doors when they have decided a conversation is going to happen on their terms. Instead, he was waiting outside the building at 7:15 a.m., standing on the pavement in a coat. No coffee, no phone in hand, just waiting, like someone who had decided this conversation needed to happen on neutral ground. She almost walked past him. She considered it. She kept walking. "Serena," he said. She stopped, turned. He looked at her for a moment in the early morning light. Something crossed his face that she had not seen there before. Not quite discomfort, but its close neighbor. "I owe you a conversation," he said. They walked. His idea. Keep moving. Harder to be overheard. Harder for anyone watching to read the body language of a conversation from a distance. She noted the calculation behind it and filed it away. He talked. She listened. He had suspected for 8 months, he said. Not known, suspected. There was a photograph his father had kept, not displayed anywhere, locked in a desk drawer that Marcus had found 3 years ago when he was clearing Raymond's private office after the funeral. A woman he recognized as Celeste, and a baby. He had not understood it immediately. It had taken him time and several conversations with people who knew his father better than his mother would have liked, and one very careful look at a junior accountant's personnel file. Her birth date, he said, and her face. My face, Serena said. Your face, he agreed quietly. She waited. I should have told you, he said. I know that. I want you to know that I know that. Why didn't you? He was quiet for half a block. Because I did not know what telling you would start, he said finally. And I did not know if I was ready for what it would start. And he stopped walking, turned to her. And because my mother made very clear, a very long time ago, that this was not a conversation that was going to happen. Your mother had Celeste institutionalized, Serena said. It was not a question. She watched his face. He looked away. That was its own answer. She said it was for Celeste's well-being, he said. That Celeste was unstable. That it was the compassionate choice. Do you believe that? The pause was exactly long enough. I believed it for a long time, he said.
I am less certain now. She looked at him in the morning light. This man with his mother's eyes who signed her paychecks, shared her blood, and known for 8 months and said nothing. You said you were protecting me, she said. Yes. From what? From my mother, he said simply. From what she does to things that threaten what she has built. She already knows about me, Serena said. She warned me at the gala. She had someone search my apartment. Something moved across his face. She could not tell if it was surprise or confirmation. Then she is further along than I thought, he said quietly. Marcus, she said his name the way you say the name of someone you need to be straight with you. Are you telling me this because you want to help me or because you want to manage me? He looked at her for a long moment. I am telling you this, he said, because you are my sister, and I have not done right by that, and I am trying to. She held his gaze. She did not believe him completely. She did not disbelieve him completely. That was the problem with Marcus Caldwell. That had always been the problem with Marcus Caldwell. He lived in the space between those two things, and he was very comfortable there, and she was not. She walked back to the building. She did not wait for him. Chapter 12. Priya's Gambit. The text came from a number she did not recognize. Thursday, 11:43 p.m. I have something you need. Meet me. Tell no one, especially not Marcus. She stared at it for a long time. Then she typed, Who is this? The response came in under a minute. You already know. They met the following Saturday at a coffee shop in Little 5 Points. Priya's choice. Far enough from Midtown that it was unlikely anyone connected to Caldwell Enterprises would walk through the door. Priya was already there when Serena arrived, sitting with her back to the wall and a view of the entrance, which told Serena everything she needed to know about how Priya approached rooms. She was in weekend clothes, understated, expensive in a quiet way. No jewelry except small earrings. She looked younger out of the boardroom and more dangerous, which Serena had not expected. She did not stand when Serena sat down. She pushed a coffee across the table instead. You look like you take it black, she said. I do, Serena said. She did not touch the coffee. Priya looked at her with something that was almost appreciation. Smart, she said. Don't accept things from people you don't trust. I like that. What do you have, Serena said. No preamble, no small talk. She was done with both. Priya reached into her bag and placed a document on the table between them. Serena looked at it without touching it. The original will, not Bernard's copy. The original. She could tell by the paperweight, the ink, the notary seal in the bottom corner. Where did you get that? Serena said. My father's attorney kept a copy separate from the one my mother's lawyers have been trying to bury, she said. He gave it to me 6 months ago. He was very old and very tired of keeping secrets for a family that did not deserve his loyalty. Why are you bringing it to me now? Priya wrapped both hands around her own coffee cup. She looked at Serena directly. Because I have been losing to my mother and my brother my entire life, she said, and I am tired of losing. And you are the only person in this situation whose interests align with mine. Your interests, Serena said. Tell me exactly what those are. Gloria removed from the board, she said. Marcus out of the CEO chair. A restructured executive table where my vote actually counts. She paused. Injustice for Celeste, if that matters to you. It matters to me. She was kind to me when I was young, and they put her away, and I was too afraid to say anything, and I have not forgiven myself for that. Serena looked at him for a long time. You said especially not Marcus, she said. Why? Because Marcus is still deciding whose side he is on, and until he decides, he is a liability. He will tell you he is protecting you. He protects himself. He always has. And you don't? For the first time, something that was almost a smile crossed Priya Caldwell's face. Of course I do, she said. The difference is I am telling you that up front. Serena walked out of that coffee shop with the original will in her bag and a question she could not answer. Could Priya be trusted? The honest answer was no. Priya Caldwell could not be trusted in the way that you trust someone whose interests are identical to yours. Her interests were adjacent to Serena's, not identical. She wanted power. She wanted her mother gone and her brother diminished, and a seat at a table where her vote actually moved things. Those goals happened right now to require Serena. What happened after was a different question. But Serena Vale had not gotten from a modest apartment in Macon to a junior accountant position at Caldwell Enterprises to the middle of a dynasty's buried truth by waiting for perfect conditions. She called Bernardo Say. I have the original, she said. A long pause. Then we are ready, he said. Chapter 13. Celeste dies. She caught the call on a Monday morning. She was at her desk, row 4, desk 7. The phone number was Atlanta Medical, and she knew before she answered. She answered anyway. She drove too fast and found parking anyway and walked through the hospital entrance that still smelled like antiseptic and old coffee, and down the corridor that she now knew by heart, and to room 14B where the door was open and the monitor was off, and the bed was neat in the particular way hospital beds are neat when they are no longer in use. She stood in the doorway for a moment. Then she walked in and sat in the chair beside the empty bed and put her face in her hands. She did not cry immediately. She sat. She breathed. She let the room be what it was. Then she cried.
quietly with the particular restraint of someone who is not accustomed to crying in rooms where other people might walk past the door. But she cried. For a woman she had met once. For a woman she had met once and had not had time to know. For every version of a conversation that was now never going to happen. A nurse brought her Celeste's belongings in a plastic bag. Not many. A woman who had lived in an institution for 14 years does not accumulate much. A cardigan. A small photograph in a frame that Serena recognizes the one from Wren Street. Her as a baby, yellow blanket, crescent birthmark. A Bible with passages underlined in pencil. And at the bottom of the bag, in an envelope with Serena's name on it in careful handwriting, a letter. Serena held it for a long time without opening it. Then she opened it. It was 4 pages, handwritten, dated 3 years ago.